What is supply chain? Develop the supply chain strategy. There's a kind of magic in some words, strategy and strategic being key examples. Place strategic in front of the name of any business process, and suddenly that process acquires an aura of great importance. Strategic objectives cry out to be achieved in a way that simple objectives do not. Strategic planning, the process of developing a strategic plan, sounds considerably more sophisticated and powerful than plain old planning. There's a reason those words have such power. Strategy, originally a military term, is how generals marshal all available resources in pursuit of victory. Strategy wins football games and chess matches, or loses them. It's really the same in the business world. Each company has a business strategy that paints a broad picture of how it will compete in the marketplace. A strategic plan describes how to marshal and determine actions to support the mission, goals, and objectives of an organization. It generally includes an organization's explicit mission, goals, and objectives, and the specific actions needed to achieve those goals and objectives. Since business strategy is like military strategy in that it requires the marshaling and organizing of all its resources, then it becomes clear that the business's supply chain can be its most potent strategic resource. Designing and building the right supply chain, one that promotes the business strategies, may just be the most powerful way to gain an edge on the competition, to move faster, deliver more value, and be more flexible in the face of both steady change and surprises. The supply chain strategy is a complex and evolving way that organizations use to distinguish themselves in the competitive contest to create value for their customers and investors. As illustrated in Exhibit 1-1, you can see how the direction of an organization is predicated on its business strategy. Of course, many organizations now also use mission and vision statements to give clarity to their purpose. If these strategies are not aligned, the direction and fit will be askew. All three strategies are linked and dependent. Differentiates between business and organizational strategy, listed as strategy in the dictionary, as follows. Business strategy, a plan for choosing how to compete. Three generic business strategies are 1. Least cost, 2. Differentiation, and 3. Focus. Strategy, organizational, the strategy of an enterprise, identifies how a company will function in its environment. The strategy specifies how to satisfy customers, how to grow the business, how to compete in its environment, how to manage the organization and develop capabilities within the business, and how to achieve financial objectives. Supply chain strategy is then a strategy for how the supply chain will function in its environment to meet the goals of the organization's business and organization strategies. Competitive advantages are closely related to business strategy because they outline the advantages the organization should realize once it has decided how it will compete. A business model is the organization's business and organizational strategy formalized into a business plan. The business model, competitive advantages, and external influences on supply chain strategy are the subjects of the first chapter in this section. The next two chapters explore supply chain strategy and how to resolve gaps between as-is and desired strategy. The last chapter provides some tools to achieve supply chain strategy. Processes for developing the supply chain strategy. The key processes that supply chain managers need to be able to perform related to developing the supply chain strategy are aligning with the business strategy, creating the supply chain strategy. Each of these processes is introduced next. Note that these are general overviews. The information required to plan and execute these processes is presented in this section's chapters. Aligning with the business strategy. The process of aligning with the business strategy involves the following steps: reviewing the organization's business plan, financial statements, and other information and analyses related to business strategy to learn the organization's overall strategic objectives, including its vision, key business policies and cost and revenue objectives, its value proposition for customers and stakeholders, including its core capabilities and areas it chooses to avoid, how it will differentiate itself in the marketplace to compete and grow in the face of change and uncertainty, gathering information on the external environment, including customer requirements, competitor business and supply chain strategies, competitor supply chain maturity, market size and market share, overall, regional, local, and industry market conditions, and global risks and opportunities. Reviewing current supply chain capacity, resilience, sustainability, and adaptability to understand the current state of the supply chain, actualized strategy. Analyzing actual alignment to business strategy and the current environment. Creating supply chain strategy. The process of creating a supply chain strategy that is complementary to the business model and the current environment involves the following steps. Defining customer service objectives for business to business and/or business to consumer. Selecting a revenue model, including direct and/or indirect, and sales channels for each customer segment. Mapping supply chain objectives to business objectives. Aligning in-house versus contracted supply chain operating model and cost structure to organizational core capabilities and strategy. Aligning operating model, for example, make to stock. Aligning cost structure or asset footprint, for example, property, plant and equipment, and human resources for planning, sourcing, production, and logistics by region. Documenting the strategy, including clarifying the supply chain value proposition, creating a network model, presenting and marketing the strategy to get executive or supply chain partners' support and approval, accepting feedback and making agreed-upon changes, getting approval of the strategy, comparing supply chain strategy to actual supply chain capacity, resilience, sustainability, and adaptability, creating action plans to resolve misalignments or gaps between desired and actual supply chain strategy. Note that these action plans often involve supply chain design or redesign, which is addressed in Section B of this module, Design the Supply Chain.